Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video, this is going to be a real quick experiment. I am continuing to mess around with my Vargo titanium converter stove. This for me has been, I'm going to say quite honestly, an enigma. Basically, I have yet to be able to get this to work efficiently for me. In prior videos, you'll see me trying to use this with a flame that's completely unruly. In other regards, I've used this and just the alcohol completely evaporates on me and gets used up super fast. I mean, before I'm able to cook a meal and before I'm able to appropriately boil water. Now, I can't say that I have been able to boil water, but I just find as though that the overall reservoir size on this is quite small and the burn time is very short. So, in that regard, I've received dozens and dozens of comments, and this is in regard to one of my viewers. So this morning I was doing a little bit of work at the computer and noticed I was getting a number of different comments on different videos, and one of them was from Ghostface. So his comment was that these stoves used to be called penny stoves, and the idea being that if you take a penny and place it over the inside hole, that it should force more of the actual gas and fire out of the jet holes on the side, give you a overall better burn. So a better burn being the primary sort of, I'd say, upgrade. However, a much increased time in the overall burn, less evaporation, less wasted fuel, and less time to boil on your water because you have a more directed flame. Now, I am quite interested to see how this would go. I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment here to see how it works. So my idea is that I'm going to fill this basically below the inside here. I don't want the alcohol to pool up too much beyond sort of that sort of inner hole there. So I'm going to fill up 2 times, one just as this is, and a second time with the penny. Now, I may do a couple of different experiments. One just to check the overall quality of the flame, and another one to see the overall boil time on an equivalent amount of water. So with that said, we're going to get to it, but before we do me a favor. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. So this won't be too much different from most of the things people say you're not supposed to do. Like they say, do not burn one of these alcohol stoves inside, but whatever. I need a controlled environment and I need to be able to monitor this, and it's freezing outside, and this is the opportunity that I have. And plus, I do want to be able to see the flame, and it is quite bright outside. So what I'm doing is I'm filling this up carefully to getting it right to the ridge of the top of that inner bowl section, so pretty much to within the drop. Now, as soon as I light this, you will see that the alcohol will evaporate from the bowl itself. So I'm going to let that burn for a little bit. Now, I just lit it. Let's make sure it stays lit for just a second here. I'm going to take my stopwatch and get it established here. So now that that is burning, you'll see most of that is evaporating off. And now that it has evaporated, hitting the stopwatch and starting it here, this is going to be my actual burn time. So we're going to leave this here, let it sort of do its thing. I'm going to keep an eye on this and see overall how long it will burn. And that's going to be the first test. So the first thing is, how long does this burn without the penny? And then the second test will be to actually burn this with the penny. So I'm curious too about how long it's going to take until these jets start to fire off here. So far it's been about 30 seconds since I've had that nice controlled burn in the middle with no alcohol around the bowl section, and Vargo reports it to be 30 to 60 seconds, so I'm 40 seconds in, keeping an eye out on it here, and let's see how it goes. Now, another thing that I do want to mention is that I certainly cannot put the penny on this without the jets sort of taking off, because obviously that would extinguish the flame and that would counteract everything I'm trying to do here. So this is going to take a little bit of an experiment for me to figure it out and get it right, but let's just go through the process here together and we'll see what happens. So I'm basically 3 minutes in, and you can definitely see the flame there and no jets just yet. So this, again, like I mentioned, is part of why I'm confused. Do I really need to wait 3 whole minutes for these jets to take off? I don't know. I guess so. So I'm going to continue to monitor this, but this is part of the sort of issue I'm dealing with. Like, do I fundamentally not understand how to use this? Do I need more fuel in there to get it started? I'd say probably not. I just really don't know, but let's just go with it for now, see how this goes, and if I need to address anything later on, I certainly will. So at this point, the jet looks pretty good. It really started kind of kicking off at 8 minutes and 40 seconds. It's just been a couple extra minutes since I was able to get the camera running again. So this sort of jet took off and is really burning a nice blue flame and controlled flame here. Like I said, took to about 8 minutes and 40 seconds. So now that this is going good, let's just monitor this burn, see how it looks, and hopefully at some point I'll be able to see the flame actually extinguish, and then we'll get ourselves a total time on this burn for this particular amount of alcohol. So we're getting down towards sort of the bottom of the reservoir here. We're at 16.5 minutes. Call it 16 minutes, 40 seconds now. Strong looking jet. Maybe to the, I don't know, maybe bottom fifth of the alcohol here. I'm just putting this black background there real quick so you can see the quality of the flame. Obviously you can see just from me talking a little bit of it blowing around, but the quality of the flame there, nice and smooth, burning bright blue. And overall looking pretty nice. So this is literally running out of fuel right now. Basically the last probably, I don't know, 30 seconds or so of burning here. And this is probably just about to go out. So here you're basically seeing the flame extinguishing itself. Last tiny little bits of fuel, just ever so slightly burning off there. And hanging on for dear life. That flame is down to practically nothing, barely able to hold on, and it's out. So at this point, the official time on this is, call it 22 minutes and 40 seconds, 22 and a half, 22:40, something like that. So now we'll do the next test, and we will introduce the penny as suggested, and see if we can increase the overall burn time and get something that's maybe a better quality flame. Although I was pretty happy with the overall quality of the flame here on that test. So anyway, now to add the penny, so I'll get the fuel established and we'll do round 2. So using the exact same method, here I'm going to fill the stove up just to the point where it's right up to the top of that internal opening. Trying to be very careful and precise, as close as I can. So I feel like that is overall pretty good. Same thing here. Getting that established and lighting. I'll wait till the alcohol burns right off the top. And at this point, it is getting close. Tiny little bit more. And with that, we will start our time. So getting at it here and establishing the stopwatch. I need to wait for the jets to actually take off, and then once the jets are burning there, I should be at the point where I can introduce the penny. So I'll come back soon. So very similar to the last test. Here you'll see no jets just yet, 4 minutes and 40 seconds, and this thing's just kind of simmering along. So I'm just going to continue to monitor this, try to figure out exactly when those jets start to kick, get the flame nice and established, and then we'll introduce the penny. Very cool. You can see that actually trying to light itself, and unfortunately it seems to have extinguished itself, and you saw that live happen right there on the camera. So right now it's actually struggling just a little bit to light. But those jets are trying to go. And there you go. So I did have to monitor this, unfortunately, a little bit, just to keep it alive. And let's let that burn and get itself nice and established. So at this point here, we are at like 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Let's give that just a little bit more to, I'd say, establish and really get a nice quality, even flame. It looks like it's trying, but there's a little bit of wicking right now and sort of, you know, the flames dancing around. So let's see if that'll settle down a bit before we introduce the penny. All right, so just as before, we're rolling up on the 8.5 minute mark. So at this point, I am going to take the penny and attempt to establish this inside here. Now just taking a metal spoon real quick and covering the inside of that hole. Now I have changed this altogether. So you'll see now there is absolutely no flame in the middle, and it's only coming around the edges. So we're going to do a couple things. We're going to monitor the burn time overall, so total burn time, flame quality, and we'll take a look at this at the end and see how long the alcohol lasts. So it should be a reasonably controlled volume between the two tests, so let's keep an eye on this. And then afterwards, maybe we'll do a boil test and we'll check out how long it takes for each one of these setups to boil a controlled volume of water. So taking a quick look at the quality of the flame, you'll see there is a little bit of dancing, but it is a nice bright blue color. Looks pretty good in terms of the overall jet. Now I'd say it's dancing around maybe a touch more than without the penny. I don't know if it's me kind of moving around just a little bit, creating a little action there, or if it's because just the pressure is a little bit different. If you imagine now that that hole is covered up, it doesn't have quite the same atmospheric pressure pushing down on it to force the jet out the way it did before without the penny. So just an observation on the overall quality of the flame. Now continuing to monitor this here, we are 15 minutes and 45 seconds in. Now what I've realized is the main difficulty I'm going to have is monitoring the amount of fluid left inside here. Obviously now that the penny's on top, I'm not able to see inside the stove. So that is the one little challenge that I have, so I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on this and get an accurate burn time. So I can't promise anything, but I'm going to sit here and keep an eye on this thing and hopefully catch it when it's ready to burn itself out. So I was just sitting here minding my business, and I heard this thing basically extinguish itself. And as you look here, we're at the 20 minute and 18 second mark. So let's take a quick look inside here and see if there is any more fuel. Now it's probably going to be a bit on the hot side. Actually, we just kind of knock this penny out of the way, and it is completely empty. So that's a little bit tough. I think I had the appropriate amount of fuel based on everything that I did in the setup. Looks to be basically exact. So I would say the burn time is very similar. I mean, the last test was in the 22 minute mark, and here it just went out when I came over here and started filming. So, you know, a little bit over 20 minutes. So within 2 minutes on the burn, over a 20 minute period is a reasonable margin for error. So I would say that the penny did not seem to make all too much difference in the way of the overall burn time. Now looking at that penny, you can see that there is some discoloration on it now, which is kind of funny. I don't know if that comes off, but it was a brand new shiny copper penny. But that is an interesting fact. So I could continue to do some additional testing, but I think at this point I want to check the boil time on a controlled volume of water. Okay, so moving on now with the experiment. Here I have a controlled volume of alcohol. I am basically going to use this for all the rest of the testing here on out, filling this up. At this point, it is greater than the amount of alcohol I had before by a little bit. It is up and into that bowl section. So now I'm going to be boiling some water, and if I get this going here, we are going to establish the flame. So as soon as the jets start here, we are going to put this pot of water on the stove. Now I have exactly 1 cup of water, so we're going to see how long it takes. This is not about the burn time of the stove anymore. It's about the length of time it takes to effectively boil 1 cup of water. So once the jets get established, we'll put this on top, we'll boil up the cup of water, and we'll see how long it takes. So at this point we have a pretty nice looking flame. I'm just going to close this door here to keep that sort of square. Now getting this pot up onto the flame, we'll get this established, and now that I've placed it down there, I am going to start the stopwatch. So we'll let this run and see how long it takes to boil that cup of water. Now just to reiterate that this is without the penny right now, so looking at the quality of the flame, nice blue flame underneath there. Looks to be actually pretty nice and controlled. Obviously there's no wind inside here, so that doesn't really affect it too much. So generally speaking, that looks pretty good. Now it's one of the things about this stove that I've always had a little bit of a hard time with. If you look at the side here, you will notice that the flame is just wicking right up the side of this. There's not too much I can do about it. There is not a damper on the inside, but that's one of the things that I've struggled with just a little bit, is the ability to control this flame. Now we're at just about the 3.5 minute mark. Taking a quick look here to see where we stand and popping open this cover. Little tiny bubbles, so it is starting to establish the boil. So let's keep at it here. And I can hear it now, so at 6 minutes and 50 seconds, starting to see the steam pushing out of the top, and voila, that is at a perfect rolling boil. So I would say 6 minutes and 50 seconds to get this to a rolling boil without the penny. At this point, I'm reestablishing my controlled experiment, putting that same volume of alcohol inside the stove, trying to get it so that I have pretty much the exact same conditions. Again, just filling this up. It's going to be a little bit more than the original burn test, getting that inside there. Now I'm going to light it and get it established, and then we'll do the same thing with that overall appropriate volume of liquid. So getting my cup back and filling it with exactly 1 cup of water. Once the jets start, I am going to place my penny over the central hole to see if it makes a difference, and then we'll run a burn time, see how long it takes to boil the water. Okay, so now that we have established our jet, taking the penny, dropping it inside, and positioning it completely over the hole. Now that is in there and looks to be pretty good. So at this point, I'll close the door carefully, take my pot, and let's get that established. And now that it is on there, I will get my stopwatch and start. So here we go, running the stopwatch there, getting it established. We'll let this go for a little bit, and then I'll come back and we'll see how we're doing. Now just a real quick observation that if you look at the flame, it's basically the exact same pattern. So regardless of having the penny in there or not, I still have that one little bit of the flame wicking right up the side of the pot there. If you can see that, the blue flame running right up the side of the pot. And it's only on this one side, which is kind of funny. Checking the quality of the flame there. Looks to be, again, nice and blue. Very bright and vibrant. You can kind of see the penny in there behind the scenes. So now rolling in at the 3 minute and 30 second mark. Taking a real quick look inside, see we're starting to establish some bubbles. So I'm going to let that continue to do its thing and see how long it takes till it hits a full rolling boil. 6 minute mark here. You can hear the bubbles starting to form in there and the boiling. So I'd say realistically 6:15. Let's take a quick look. And there we go. Now the other rolling boil was just a touch harder, so maybe it was just a few seconds later than that, but you can see the steam coming out of the top now, so I'll call it 6:30, 6:15, 6:30, something like that. Yeah, 6:30. That looks exactly like the other rolling boil did. So with the penny inside the stove, 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, so at this point you've seen the experiment. You've seen me running 2 different tests. One being an overall burn time without the penny and a burn time with the penny. And then the other test being a boil time without the penny and boil time with. So let's talk now about the overall burn time and what we found. So without the penny, we lit this at basically call it 0 seconds. Now that was also the same case for the burn time with the penny. In both cases, it took a little while for the jets to kick on, A little bit less time actually with the penny. Now I don't know if that's because the stove had already been used and maybe the conditions were just slightly different and it was warmed up just a bit, but I did try to kind of let everything cool down and get back to a control condition before I proceeded with the second round of the experiment. So it's just, if you really think about it, a little bit of a difference there of a couple of minutes. You'll see the total time here basically going from 8 minutes and 40 seconds to 22 minutes and 40 seconds after the jets took off. Now, with that being the case, we had about 14 minutes of total burn time with the jets being lit. So that is kind of what I'm considering. So the consideration is that you did have 8 minutes and 40 seconds without the actual jets taking off. But again, as I mentioned, 14 minutes of actual burn time. So now taking a closer look at the burn time with the penny. Again, like I mentioned, you did have a little bit less in terms of the overall time it took to get to where the jets actually took off. And then at the end of it all, I get the jets kind of established, get the penny installed. That was at about 8 minutes and 50 seconds. And you'll see a little bit shorter of a burn time overall. However, when you take a look at it, you'll see from 6 minutes and 20 seconds to call it 20 minutes and 20 seconds, that is also 14 minutes, which I think is kind of intriguing. So in reality, with a controlled volume of alcohol pretty much being the same, granted, I did get the jets to start firing off a little bit earlier in this particular case. Both tests show that with the jets fully established, you had 14 minutes of total burn time. So that to me tells me that there is actually no real difference between having the penny installed and not having the penny installed. And taking a look at the overall quality of the flame and the actual sort of shape and size and overall ability for this to burn, I really didn't see any difference. And that now gets me into the boil test. Now with no penny, I got the jets to light, added the pot, and started the stopwatch, so the total time to a rolling boil was 6 minutes and 50 seconds. And in the second situation, adding the penny, basically once I got the jets to light, added the penny and the pot, it took to 6 minutes and 30 seconds for a rolling boil. Now in my opinion, I feel as though the flame was pretty much about the same, didn't seem to act any different between the two tests, and in that regard had a very similar overall boil time of in the 6:30 to 6:50 minute mark. Now to me, that's pretty much the same. It doesn't really have all that much difference or implications on the overall amount of fuel used, and I really don't see this being something that makes or breaks the experience with the stove. So adding the penny to me didn't really do any significant difference or give me any better experience with this converter stove. Now just taking a real quick look at the penny, you'll see the middle of it is now tarnished. It's actually not very easy to come off. It's really pretty much permanently in there. So you can see that it definitely had a little bit of a reaction on there while this thing was burning. And so, I don't know, when it's all said and done, I have to say I'm not really convinced. So alright guys, there you have it. A quick look at the Vargo Titanium Converter Stove. A quick experiment to see if adding a penny to the middle would increase the overall performance with longer lasting fuel and a quicker boil time. Now, in this regard, I have to say, unfortunately, I think this myth is busted. I'd like to say thank you to Ghostface for the suggestion. He did actually give me a couple other suggestions which I still have to try, but that'll be a video for later. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.